The sound of clinking glasses and laughter floated through the garden reception as Henry Mitchell watched his 6-year-old daughter Lily twirl in her flower girl dress. Her face glowing with happiness, despite the challenges they'd faced since her mother's death 2 years ago. Henry tugged at his rented tuxedo, feeling out of place among the wedding guests who seemed to navigate the social atmosphere with an ease he couldn't fathom. "Daddy, come dance with me," Lily called out, her small hand reaching for his. "In a minute, sweetheart," Henry replied, scanning the buffet table and calculating how many leftovers he might be able to take home without seeming desperate. Being a single dad working 2 jobs meant their refrigerator was often as empty as his savings account. Henry had only attended the wedding because his cousin was the groom, and Lily had been selected as the flower girl, a rare bright spot in their otherwise challenging life. Between his day job as a mechanic and evening shifts, stocking shelves at a grocery store, Henry barely had time to breathe, let alone attend social events. As the evening progressed, Henry found himself seated at a table with other distant relatives and acquaintances, all engrossed in conversations about vacations and career advancements topics that seemed from another world. He checked his watch, wondering how soon he could politely leave without disappointing Lily. "She's absolutely precious," came a warm, melodic voice from behind him. Henry turned to find a woman watching Lily dance with the other children. She wore a simple yet elegant emerald dress that complemented her auburn hair, which fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Her smile reached her eyes, kind, intelligent eyes that immediately put Henry at ease. "Thank you," he said, pride momentarily overshadowing his insecurities. "She's my whole world." "I can tell," the woman said, extending her hand. "I'm Rachel Hayes." "Henry Mitchell," he replied, noticing her firm handshake and the absence of a wedding ring. "Are you a friend of the bride or groom?" "The bride was my college roommate," Rachel explained. "We've stayed close despite our very different lives." Before Henry could respond, the band transitioned to a slow song, and Lily appeared at their table, slightly out of breath. "Daddy, you promised to dance with me," she reminded him, her eyes pleading. "I did, didn't I?" Henry smiled, standing up. "Your daughter's right promises are sacred," Rachel said with a warm smile. Henry nodded, taking Lily's hand. "Would you like to join us?" he asked Rachel impulsively, surprising himself. "I'd be honored," Rachel replied, her expression softening as she looked at Lily. The 3 of them moved to the dance floor, with Lily sandwiched between them. Henry lifted his daughter onto his shoes so she could stand on them while they danced, a ritual they'd established during rare, playful moments at home. "You're good at this," Rachel observed, noticing how naturally Henry moved despite his obvious discomfort with the formal setting. "Car mechanics and dancing don't usually go hand in hand," Henry laughed self-deprecatingly. "But Lily's been teaching me." "He steps on my toes sometimes," Lily announced solemnly, causing Rachel to laugh, a genuine sound that made several heads turn their way. As they danced, Henry found himself relaxing. Rachel asked Lily questions about her first-grade class and her favorite books, showing a genuine interest that children could always sense. She never once glanced at her phone or looked around the room as if searching for more important people to talk to something Henry had noticed other guests doing when trapped in conversation with him. When the song ended, Lily spotted her cousins playing by the cake table and asked permission to join them. "Stay where I can see you," Henry cautioned as she scampered off, leaving him alone with Rachel. "Another dance," Rachel suggested as a new song began, "unless you need to check on something." Henry hesitated, aware of the hole in his left sock, and the fact that his conversation skills had grown rusty from exhaustion and isolation. "I'd like that," he finally said. As they moved together, Henry noticed details about Rachel he'd missed before: the tiny freckles across her nose, the way she bit her lips slightly when concentrating, and how she seemed completely present in the moment. So, 2 jobs. she asked, clearly remembering a comment he'd made earlier when explaining his schedule to Lily. That obvious, huh? Henry tried to keep his tone light. Mechanic by day, grocery stocker by night. Not exactly the career path I planned. Plans have a way of changing, Rachel said without judgment. What did you want to be? The question caught Henry off guard. Most people avoided asking about his circumstances once they sensed his financial struggles, as if poverty might be contagious. I was studying engineering when Lily's mom got pregnant, he explained. I dropped out to work full-time. Then after Anna died. He trailed off, the memory still raw. I'm sorry, Rachel said softly, her hand squeezing his shoulder gently. It's been 2 years now. We're managing, Henry said, though the word managing stretched the truth considerably. Last month, he'd had to choose between paying the electric bill and getting Lily new shoes for school. What about you? He asked, eager to shift the focus. What do you do? A flicker of something hesitation crossed Rachel's face. I work in finance, she said simply. Investment management. Sounds complicated, Henry replied, imagining her in a cubicle similar to the insurance office where he paid his monthly car payment in person, always a few days late. It can be, she acknowledged with a smile that suggested there was more to the story. They danced through another song, their conversation flowing more easily than Henry had experienced in years. Rachel asked about his work as a mechanic with genuine curiosity, seeming impressed when he described how he'd rebuilt a transmission last week. There's something satisfying about fixing things, he admitted, taking something broken and making it work again. That's a rare skill, Rachel said. Most people in my world just replace things when they break. Before Henry could ask what she meant by her world, Lily returned, tugging at his pant leg. Daddy, I'm getting sleepy, she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Henry checked his watch. It was nearly 10, well past Lily's bedtime. I should get her home, he said to Rachel, surprised by his reluctance to end their conversation. Of course, Rachel nodded, kneeling to Lily's level. It was lovely dancing with you, Miss Lily. You too, Lily replied through a yawn. You're pretty like a princess, Rachel laughed. Thank you. That's quite a compliment coming from such an expert on princesses. Henry gathered Lily's small backpack and her cardigan, preparing for the bus ride home. His car had broken down last week, and the parts to fix it cost more than he could spare right now. It was nice meeting you, Rachel, Henry said, extending his hand. Instead of shaking it, Rachel pulled out a business card from a small clutch purse. Maybe we could get coffee sometime. I'd like to hear more about your engineering interests. Surprised, Henry accepted the card, noticing it contained only her name and a phone number, no company logo or position title. Sure, he said, though he wondered if she was just being polite. As he carried a half-asleep Lily toward the exit, Henry slipped the card into his pocket, already certain he wouldn't call. Women like Rachel, poised, educated, clearly comfortable in this upscale setting, didn't typically want to spend time with struggling single dads. The next morning, Henry woke at 5:30 as usual, preparing Lily's lunch for the day camp she attended during summer break. As he spread peanut butter on bread, he found himself thinking about Rachel's laugh and the way she'd spoken directly to Lily, not over her head as many adults did. Daddy, can I wear my blue shirt today? Lily asked as she emerged from her tiny bedroom in their 2-bedroom apartment. The blue one's in the wash, sweetheart. How about the purple one with the stars? Henry suggested, mentally calculating when he'd have time to do laundry between his shifts. After dropping Lily at day camp, Henry arrived at Johnson's auto shop, where he'd worked for the past 4 years. The familiar smells of oil and grease welcomed him as he changed into his work coveralls. How was the fancy wedding? His coworker Mike asked, rolling out from under a Subaru. It was actually nice, Henry admitted, surprised by his own answer. Lily had fun being flower girl. Meet any single ladies? Mike waggled his eyebrows suggestively. The image of Rachel immediately surfaced in Henry's mind. Just focused on getting Lily through it without spilling anything on her dress. He deflected, opening the hood of a Honda with engine trouble. Throughout the day, as Henry diagnosed fuel injection problems and replaced brake pads, his thoughts kept returning to Rachel. There had been something refreshing about her interest in his work and his daughter. By his lunch break, he'd nearly convinced himself to text her until reality crashed back when his phone buzzed with a notification that his rent check had bounced. "Perfect," he muttered, calling the bank to move money from his emergency fund, which was now down to less than $100. By the time Friday rolled around, Henry had almost forgotten about Rachel. Almost. Her business card remained in his wallet, a reminder of an evening that already seemed like a dream compared to the harsh realities of his daily struggle. That evening, while stocking cereal boxes at Harrison's grocery, Henry was startled to hear a familiar voice asking a store employee where to find the organic pasta section. He peered around the aisle display to see Rachel, dressed in jeans and a simple blouse, looking remarkably different yet just as striking as she had at the wedding. Before he could decide whether to approach her or hide, Lily, who sat on a stock crate doing homework while Henry worked, spotted her. "It's the princess lady," she exclaimed loudly, causing Rachel to turn in their direction. Recognition and surprise flickered across Rachel's face before giving way to a genuine smile. "Well, hello there," she said, approaching them. "Fancy meeting you two here." Henry became acutely aware of his uniform vest with the store logo and the price gun in his hand. "Rachel, hi," he managed, embarrassment heating his face. "I didn't expect to see you in this neighborhood. I was visiting a community center nearby," she explained, her attention shifting to Lily. "And how are you today, Miss Lily?" "No dancing tonight? I'm doing math," Lily replied seriously, holding up her worksheet. "Daddy helps me between putting things on shelves." "That sounds like excellent multitasking," Rachel said, looking at Henry with what seemed like admiration rather than pity. "My shift ends in about 20 minutes, Henry found himself saying. "There's a diner next door that Lily likes. Would you want to join us for dinner? Nothing fancy, but they make a decent burger." The invitation surprised him as much as it seemed to please Rachel. "I'd love that," she said. "If you're sure I'm not intruding on your father-daughter time." "You're nice," Lily declared before Henry could respond. "Daddy doesn't talk to many nice ladies." Henry stifled a groan at his daughter's honesty. "That's because Daddy's very busy," he explained gently. "Too busy," Lily agreed solemnly, making Rachel laugh. 40 minutes later, they were settled in a booth at Sally's Diner, with Lily coloring on a paper placemat while they waited for their food. The conversation flowed easily, with Rachel asking about their week without any forced interest or awkward pauses. "I tried calling the number on your card," Henry admitted after Lily became engrossed in her coloring. "But it went to a generic voicemail." "Oh, I'm sorry about that." Rachel looked genuinely apologetic. "I've been traveling for work this week. I should have texted to explain." "No worries," Henry said quickly. "You don't owe me any explanations." Rachel studied him for a moment. "Can I be honest with you, Henry?" He nodded, bracing himself for whatever polite brush-off was coming. "I really enjoyed talking with you at the wedding," she said instead. "It's rare for me to meet someone who's so genuine. I was hoping we could get to know each other better." Before Henry could process this unexpected turn, their food arrived: burgers for the adults and chicken fingers for Lily. As they ate, Rachel shared stories about growing up in a small town in Minnesota before moving to the city for college. She listened attentively as Henry described his own childhood in a working-class neighborhood not far from where they sat. What struck Henry most was how easily Rachel engaged with Lily, asking her questions about school and listening to her elaborate explanations about her favorite cartoon characters, as if they were discussing serious philosophy. "You're good with kids," Henry observed as they walked out of the diner later. "I work with several children's charities," Rachel explained. "It keeps me grounded." Henry nodded, though he wondered what kind of investment job involved children's charities. Before he could ask, Rachel checked her watch. "I should get going," she said reluctantly, "but I'd really like to see you both again." This time, Henry didn't hesitate. "We'd like that too, wouldn't we, Lily?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Can we go to the park?" "Rachel hasn't seen me on the monkey bars, and I'm the best in my class." "The park sounds perfect," Rachel agreed, her eyes meeting Henry's with a warmth that made his heart skip. They arranged to meet that Sunday afternoon, and as Henry watched Rachel drive away in a modest sedan, not the luxury vehicle he might have expected from someone in finance, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. Sunday arrived with perfect weather, sunny, but not too hot. Henry spent the morning trying to pretend he wasn't nervous, even as he changed his shirt 3 times before settling on a clean blue button-down that Anna had always said brought out his eyes. "Are you trying to look handsome for Rachel?" Lily asked perceptively as she tied her shoes. "Just trying to look presentable," Henry deflected, though his daughter's knowing smile suggested she wasn't fooled. At the park, they found Rachel already waiting by the playground, a picnic basket beside her on the bench. "I hope you don't mind," she said by way of greeting. "I thought a picnic might be fun." "You didn't have to do that," Henry said, even as his stomach rumbled at the thought of food he hadn't had to prepare himself. "I wanted to," Rachel insisted. "Besides, I've been told my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches have magical powers." "I love peanut butter and jelly," Lily exclaimed, immediately warming to the idea. The afternoon unfolded in a way that felt both new and strangely familiar to Henry. They ate sandwiches, which were indeed exceptional, watched Lily demonstrate her monkey bar skills, and walked around the small pond where ducks gathered expectantly as they approached. "I brought duck food," Rachel said, pulling out a container of appropriate feed. "The bread isn't good for them." "See, Daddy? I told you bread makes ducks sick," Lily said with the satisfaction of a child whose knowledge has been validated by an adult who isn't her parent. "You're absolutely right," Henry acknowledged, exchanging an amused glance with Rachel. As Lily crouched by the pond's edge, carefully distributing feed under their supervision, Rachel turned to Henry. "She's incredible," she said softly. "You've done an amazing job with her." The simple validation something Henry rarely received nearly undid him. "I'm trying," he admitted. "Some days are harder than others." "That's true for everyone," Rachel replied, "even people who seem to have it all figured out." There was something in her tone that made Henry look at her more closely. "Do you have it all figured out?" he asked. Rachel's laugh held a hint of sadness. "Hardly. My job is demanding, and sometimes I wonder if I'm making the right choices. Success can be its own kind of prison." Before Henry could probe further, Lily called them over to see a particularly friendly duck, and the moment passed. Later, as the afternoon waned, they sat on a blanket Rachel had brought, watching Lily play with another child she'd befriended on the swings. "Can I ask you something personal?" Rachel said suddenly. "Sure," Henry replied, though he tensed slightly. "What's your biggest worry right now?" "The thing that keeps you up at night." The unexpected depth of the question caught him off guard. Henry considered deflecting but found himself wanting to be honest with her. "Right now, my car, it needs a new transmission, which I can't afford. Without it, getting Lily to school and me to both jobs is a logistical nightmare involving multiple bus routes." Rachel nodded, absorbing this. "What about longer term?" Henry sighed. "Lily deserves better than what I can give her. I want her to have opportunities I didn't: college, a stable home, not having to worry about money all the time. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm failing her." "You're not," Rachel said with such conviction that Henry almost believed her. "Children need love, security, and to know they matter. She has all that with you. I can see it in how she looks at you." Their conversation deepened as the afternoon progressed. Henry learned that Rachel had lost her parents in a car accident when she was in college, forcing her to grow up quickly. She spoke about the loneliness, that sometimes accompanied her career success and her desire to make meaningful connections. What Rachel didn't mention, and what Henry didn't ask about, were the specifics of her job or lifestyle. The omission wasn't intentional on either part. They were simply focused on more personal matters. As the sun began to set, they packed up the picnic and walked toward the park entrance. "Thank you for today," Henry said, as they reached his bus stop. "It's been a while since we've had such a good time." "It was the best day ever," Lily agreed. Yawning as she leaned against her father's leg, Rachel smiled, but Henry noticed a conflict in her expression. "I'd like to see you again," she said. "Both of you." "We'd like that too," Henry replied, surprised by how much he meant it. They exchanged phone numbers properly this time, with Rachel insisting on taking a picture with Lily for her contact photo. As their bus approached, Rachel impulsively leaned in and kissed Henry's cheek. "Call me tomorrow," she asked. Henry nodded, too stunned to speak as warmth spread from where her lips had touched his skin. Over the next few weeks, Rachel became a regular presence in their lives. She joined them for movie nights in their small apartment, brought books for Lily that seemed perfectly chosen for her interests, and somehow always appeared with groceries or takeout that she presented as extras she couldn't possibly eat herself. Henry initially felt uncomfortable with her generosity, but soon realized she was careful never to make him feel like a charity case. She asked for his help with small repairs in her apartment, and sought his advice on car maintenance questions that seemed suspiciously basic for someone as intelligent as she clearly was. What began to trouble Henry, however, were the inconsistencies he was noticing. Rachel never invited them to her home, always deflecting with vague mentions of renovations or work chaos. Her phone calls sometimes came at odd hours, with background noises that didn't match her explanations of where she was. And despite claiming to work in investment management, she never seemed to be required in an office. "Are you sure she's just a regular finance person?" Mike asked one day at the garage after Rachel had dropped by with lunch for everyone. "She's got that look, man." "What look?" Henry asked defensively. "I don't know. Important, like someone who makes decisions bigger than which stocks to buy." Henry dismissed his friend's observation, but the seed of doubt had been planted. That evening, as Lily was getting ready for bed, he finally did what he'd resisted doing. He searched Rachel's name online. The results made him drop his phone. Rachel Hayes was not just in finance. She was the CEO and majority shareholder of Hayes International Investments, a multi-billion-dollar company with offices in 12 countries. The most recent article detailed her philanthropic efforts through the Hayes Foundation, which focused on educational opportunities for underprivileged children. The woman he'd been dating, the woman who sat on his second-hand couch, eating pizza and helping Lily with her spelling homework, was worth more money than Henry could comprehend. When his phone buzzed with a text from Rachel asking if they were still on for their planned hike the next day, Henry didn't respond. He felt a complex mixture of emotions: betrayal at her omission, embarrassment at his own naivety, and a crushing certainty that whatever had been growing between them couldn't possibly survive this revelation. The next morning, after dropping Lily at school, Henry drove to work in his recently repaired car. A mysterious discount at the parts supplier had made the transmission replacement possible, though he now suspected it was no discount at all. He was elbow-deep in an oil change when Rachel appeared at the garage, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "You didn't answer my text," she said simply. Henry wiped his hands on a shop rag, aware of Mike and the other mechanics pretending not to listen. "Can we talk outside?" he asked, leading her to the small employee parking area. Once they were alone, Henry turned to face her. "Why didn't you tell me who you really are?" Rachel's expression fell. "You looked me up." "Shouldn't I have? Isn't that something you mention to someone you're dating?" "By the way, I'm not just in finance, I run a billion-dollar company." "Would it have made a difference?" she challenged. If I'd told you that first night at the wedding, would you have agreed to dance with me again? Would you have invited me for burgers or let me get to know Lily? Henry wanted to say yes, but the truth was more complicated. I don't know, he admitted, but you didn't give me the chance to decide. I've been on dates where men either see me as a trophy to acquire or are so intimidated they can't even maintain eye contact, Rachel explained. With you, I was just Rachel, not a balance sheet or a business magazine cover. So you lied. I omitted, she corrected gently. I never claimed to be someone I'm not. I just didn't lead with my net worth. Henry ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? All those times you brought groceries or fixed things. You were what? Conducting a social experiment, slumming with the poor mechanic and his daughter. Rachel flinched as if he'd struck her. Is that really what you think of me after these weeks together? That I would use you and Lily as some kind of poverty tourism? Her hurt was so evident that Henry's anger deflated slightly. I don't know what to think, he admitted. Everything feels different now. Nothing's different, Rachel insisted. I'm still the same person who danced with you at the wedding, who thinks your daughter is the most extraordinary child I've ever met, who has been falling in love with you day by day. The word love hung in the air between them, neither acknowledging its weight. I need time to process this, Henry finally said. Rachel nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Take all the time you need, but please know that my feelings for you both are real. Probably the most real thing in my life right now. As she walked away, Henry felt as if something precious was slipping through his fingers, but pride and confusion kept him from calling her back. That evening, Lily was unusually quiet during dinner, pushing her macaroni and cheese around her plate. What's wrong, sweetheart? Henry asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Is Rachel not coming over anymore because she's rich and we're not? Lily asked bluntly. Henry nearly choked on his water. How did you Maddie at school saw her picture in her mom's magazine? Lily explained. She said Rachel has more money than the tooth fairy. Despite everything, Henry had to smile at the comparison. It's complicated, Lil. Grown-ups always say that when they're being stupid, Lily observed with the devastating accuracy of a 6-year-old. Excuse me. Henry raised an eyebrow. You like Rachel. Rachel likes you. She's nice to me and makes you smile. Why does it matter if she has lots of money? Put that way, his objections seemed petty. It's not just about the money, Henry tried to explain. It's about trust. Rachel didn't tell me the truth. Did you ask her if she was rich? Lily challenged. Well, no, but then how could she tell you? Lily shrugged as if the solution was obvious. Maybe she was scared. What would Rachel have to be scared of? Henry asked, genuinely curious about his daughter's perspective. That you'd only like her for her money, Lily said sagely, or that you wouldn't like her because of it. Maddie said rich people have to be careful because people pretend to like them. Henry sat back, stunned by his daughter's insight. Had he been so focused on his own insecurities that he'd missed Rachel's vulnerability? Later that night, after tucking Lily in, Henry sat at their small kitchen table with Rachel's business card in his hand. After several false starts, he finally composed a text. Can we talk tomorrow? There's a coffee shop near Lily's school, Monroe and 4th. 8:30 a.m. Rachel's response came almost immediately. I'll be there. The next morning, Henry arrived early, his stomach in knots as he claimed a small table in the corner. When Rachel walked in at exactly 8:30, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, he was struck again by how normal she appeared, how the woman he'd come to care for deeply showed no outward signs of her extraordinary circumstances. Thank you for meeting me, Henry said as she sat down. Thank you for texting, she replied, her expression cautiously hopeful. I owe you an apology, he began. I reacted badly yesterday. Rachel shook her head. You had every right to be upset. I should have been more forthcoming. Maybe, Henry conceded. But my reaction was more about my own insecurities than anything you did. What are you insecure about? Rachel asked, genuinely puzzled. Henry laughed without humor. Are you serious? I'm a high school dropout raising a daughter on two barely above minimum wage jobs. You run a global corporation. The disparity is astronomical. Is that how you see us? As numbers on a balance sheet? Rachel leaned forward. Because I see a brilliant, hard-working man who sacrificed his dreams to be an exceptional father. I see someone who rebuilds engines and still finds energy to help with homework. I see a man who made me laugh at a wedding when I was hiding from another set-up attempt by well-meaning friends. Her words warmed something in Henry that had been cold for too long. I still don't understand what you see in me, he admitted. Then let me show you, Rachel said simply, if you'll give me another chance. Henry considered all the reasons this relationship made no sense, the different worlds they inhabited, the complications that would inevitably arise, the scrutiny they would face. Then he thought about Rachel's laugh, the way she listened when he spoke, how she treated Lily with respect and genuine affection. On one condition, he said finally. Name it. No more financial interventions without talking to me first. No mysterious discounts or groceries that appear like magic. If you want to help, we discuss it openly. Rachel nodded solemnly. I can respect that, and I have a condition too. What's that? You have to promise to see yourself as I see you, not as someone defined by your bank account or job title, but as the remarkable man you are. Henry felt something tight in his chest begin to loosen. I'll try, he promised. That's good enough for now, Rachel smiled, reaching across the table to take his hand. As their fingers intertwined, Henry realized that the woman before him, billionaire CEO or not, was simply Rachel. The person who had danced with him and his daughter, who saw value in him beyond his circumstances, who was offering a chance at something he'd thought was no longer possible. So where do we go from here? He asked. Forward, Rachel replied, together. 6 months later, Henry stood in the kitchen of his new apartment, a spacious 3-bedroom in a good school district that he insisted on paying for himself. Even if it meant Rachel helping him find better-paying work as the manager of a high-end auto restoration shop that valued his mechanical skills. Daddy, Rachel's here. Lily called from the living room where she was setting up the board game they'd planned to play that evening. Rachel entered carrying a small cake box. I brought dessert, she announced, setting it on the counter before kissing Henry softly. You're spoiling us, Henry said, though the words now held affection rather than discomfort. Only in the ways that matter, Rachel replied with a smile. Their relationship had evolved with careful negotiation of boundaries and gradual integration of their lives. Rachel had introduced Henry to her world slowly, and he'd found that beneath the wealth and prestige were people not so different from himself, some kind, some pretentious, all human. For her part, Rachel had embraced the simple pleasures of Henry's life, community barbecues, school functions, and quiet evenings at home that offered a respite from her demanding career. I have news, Rachel said as they settled around the game board after dinner. Good news. Lily asked, arranging her game pieces. I think so, Rachel smiled. The Hayes Foundation is launching a scholarship program for adult learners who had to postpone their education. It provides full tuition and a living stipend. Her eyes met Henry's meaningfully. That sounds like an amazing opportunity for someone, Henry said, understanding her implication but still hesitant. It could be, Rachel agreed. Especially for someone with an interest in engineering who already has practical mechanical experience. Later, after Lily was asleep, they sat on the balcony of the apartment, looking at the city lights. You don't have to create an entire scholarship program just for me, Henry said softly. I didn't, Rachel assured him. The program has been in development for months. But I would be lying if I said you weren't part of my inspiration. Henry considered how far they'd come since that first dance. I never imagined my life could change so much in less than a year. Is it a good change? Rachel asked, a rare vulnerability in her voice. In answer, Henry reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait until the weekend, but now seems right, he said, opening it to reveal a simple but elegant ring. I can't offer you wealth or status, but I can promise to love you, support your dreams, and build a life where we both feel valued for who we are, not what we have. Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the ring. You understand that's all I've ever wanted, don't you? I'm beginning to, Henry smiled. So, Rachel Hayes, billionaire CEO and the woman who somehow sees the best in a struggling mechanic, will you marry me? Yes, she whispered, pulling him close. 1,000 times yes. As they embraced under the stars, Henry reflected on how a single dance at a wedding had led them here to a love that transcended financial disparities and social expectations. Built instead on mutual respect, genuine connection, and the shared understanding that true wealth had nothing to do with money and everything to do with the hearts they'd entrusted to each other.